The space station floated in silence above a dying moon. From the outside, it looked like a simple trade hub. But inside, Sector 9 held something darker, something cruel, a market of the enslaved. Many species came here, some to sell, some to buy, some just to watch. The rules were simple: pay with credits, no fighting, and never question the collars. Among the crowd walked a quiet man, human, average height, short brown hair, dark eyes. His name was Darren Holt. He wore a trader's cloak, but he wasn't a trader. He was a diplomatic agent sent from Earth to investigate rumors of illegal trafficking in forbidden systems. His mission: blend in, make a purchase, get close to the slaver ring and send proof back, that's all. He wasn't here to save anyone, he wasn't here to be a hero, just observe. Just report. A loud voice echoed through the dirty market hall. Next lot, female Kailari, untouched, Gen class verified, strong womb, rare blood. Darren turned his head. The crowd pushed forward. On the platform stood a woman, tall and proud, even in chains. Her skin shimmered violet blue under the harsh lights. Her hair fell like silver fire across her shoulders. Her eyes, golden and sharp, looked down at no one. She was beautiful. But more than that. She looked awake. Alive. Not broken like the others. The slaver shouted again, fertile. Bred only once for testing. Excellent genetics, ready for noble seed. The aliens around Darren laughed and whispered. She'd make perfect heirs. Imagine her with a noble crest. Too proud now, but we can fix that. Darren's stomach twisted. He looked at the woman again. She looked at him just for a second. And in that second, he saw something. Fire. The slaver waved a control rod. Opening bid. 50,000 credits. The crowd roared. 70, 90, 100. Darren didn't move. Then, slowly, he raised his hand. 150,000. Gasps filled the room. The slaver blinked. Sold. To the human. Cheers followed. Darren stepped forward, calm on the outside. Inside, he was shaking. He didn't plan to buy anyone. But something about her eyes and her stare, he couldn't walk away. The slaver placed a small black device in his hand. The ownership collar remote. She's yours now. The slaver smirked. You're a lucky man. Darren turned. The Kailari woman stood before him. No smile, no bow, just steel in her gaze. He whispered, "What's your name?" She replied in perfect standard. "Malaya." He nodded. "I'm Darren." She leaned closer. "You may own my body now, but my soul is fire, and I would rather die than carry a monster's child." Darren stared at her. Then slowly he took the collar remote and crushed it under his boot. The crowd gasped. Even Malaya looked surprised. He whispered, low enough that only she could hear, "Then die free. Or live as something more. I'm not here to own. I'm here to choose." He took her hand gently. No chains, no force, just a hand. And for the first time, Malaya blinked in confusion, because no one had ever done that before. They walked out of the market together, past the slavers, past the guards, past the crowd. No one stopped them, because they thought they were just another master and slave. But they weren't. They were something else. Something beginning. Far above the station, in a hidden ship, a message was sent back to Earth. Purchase complete. Entry achieved. Target slave acquired. Codename Malaya. But mission changed. She is not what they say. She is more, much more. The safe house was hidden behind a broken comm station on the outer edge of the moon. It didn't look like much. Rusted walls, cracked floors, barely working lights. But it was quiet. And more importantly, free from cameras. Malaya sat, silently on the old metal chair. Her arms were no longer bound, her collar was gone, but her back was still straight and her eyes still sharp, like a warrior waiting for the first lie. She watched Darren move around the room, setting down supplies, running a scan on the walls, checking the perimeter. He didn't speak to her. Not yet, and that made her even more suspicious. Finally, he placed a small white cube on the table. A voice spoke from it in a gentle tone. Safe house secured. Comm scrambled. Surveillance null. Welcome Earth Agent Darren Holt, Melaya's. Eyes narrowed. You're not a buyer. Darren looked at her and gave a tired nod. No, I'm not. Then why did you purchase me? He sat across from her. Because I was sent to find the slaver ring source. To get inside, to gather proof. And you used me as the key. His voice was quiet. Yes. Melaya leaned back slowly. And now? What will you do with your key? Darren met her gaze. Free it. She didn't react. No anger. No relief. Just silence. Then she said, You're different from the others, but I still don't trust you. I wouldn't expect you to, he replied. She stood and walked around the room, slow and deliberate. Do you know what they wanted from me? I read the file. You're Kelari, rare genetics, high fertility rating. Your kind can bear hybrid children. She nodded. They wanted to sell my womb, not my voice, not my mind. I know. She turned to face him again. Yet you placed the highest bid. I had to. If I didn't, someone else would have taken you, someone who wouldn't have asked you what you wanted. A long silence passed. Then Melaya said something Darren didn't expect. If you want to complete your mission, I will help you. Darren blinked. You'll help me bring them down? She nodded once. I know where they send the others. Where the breeding centers are, where the children are taken. I remember every face, every voice. Darren sat up straighter. Why would you help me? Melaya's voice dropped low. Because I'm tired of watching my sisters be turned into cribs and cages. Darren activated a small holomap. Can you mark the path? Melaya stepped forward, pointed to a system on the edge of the grid. There. They call it the womb vault. It's where they keep the ones who can breed. They don't sell them, they store them. Darren's fist clenched. How many? Hundreds. Maybe more. All female. All waiting. He stood up. We'll get them out. Melaya raised an eyebrow. We? Darren looked at her. I don't care what command says. I came to report. But now, I stay to fight. She looked at him for a long time, then sat back down. You really are not like the others. I'm just trying to be human. Hours passed. They planned. They listed names. Melaya drew the interior of the breeding facility from memory, every corridor, every guard post. But as they worked, something changed. Not with the mission, with the space between them. It grew smaller. Late, at night, Darren prepared a blanket and offered her the bed. She shook her head. I've slept on cold stone for years. This is fine. He didn't argue. Instead, he lowered his head and said softly, I'm sorry for what they did to you. Melaya didn't speak, but after a moment she said, You're the first male who said that. The next morning, just before dawn, Melaya sat across from him at the table. She placed her hand flat on the metal and said calmly, I will give them what they want. Darren's eyes widened. What do you mean? I will bear a child. Stood up, confused. You don't have to, you're free now. I know, she said. That's why I choose it. Darren stared at her. I don't understand. She stood and walked to him. Her voice was steady, strong. I've had my body taken, my voice silenced, my worth defined by womb and blood, but now for the first time, I get to choose the father, and I choose the one who gave me nothing but my freedom. Darren's voice broke. You're serious? Melaya nodded. I want my child to be born from a bond, not a command. She reached for his hand. And I want you to raise them. As a protector, not a master. Darren didn't answer. He just held her hand back. Not with hunger, not with power, but with respect. Outside, the stars began to shift, and somewhere across the galaxy, the slavers prepared for another auction. But they didn't know. One of their prizes was now planning their fall. The wind on the moon of Varan 5 had no sound, no trees, no water, just wind and dust. But inside a quiet cave, far from the slaver trade rings, two souls were learning how to breathe again. Darren knelt near the heat core, adjusting the settings on the survival unit. The cave had become their shelter. Not perfect, but safe. Behind him, Malaya stood with her hand over her stomach. She hadn't said anything yet, but she could feel it. A spark. A beginning. They didn't talk about the child yet, not directly. They both knew what was coming. But first, they had to learn how to live. Not just escape, not just survive, but truly live and together. Malaya stepped closer. You keep working even when you're tired. Darren smiled faintly. I guess I'm not used to stopping. You're allowed to rest now. I will. When you feel safe. She paused, watching him. I haven't felt safe in years. But something about your silence. It feels like peace. They began building routines. In the morning, Darren cooked simple meals with protein packs and dried herbs. Malaya showed him how to fold fire rocks to trap heat longer. In the evening, she practiced stretching, slow, graceful movements from her old training as a guardian elite. Darren watched her with quiet awe. She moved like wind, but carried weight like stone. One night, they sat side by side under the stars, on the ridge outside the cave. Darren asked, "What was your home like, before all of this?" Malaya didn't answer at first. Then she said softly, "My home was a mountaintop, cold air, silver sky. We trained with breath and blade. My people believed in purpose, not possession." She looked up. Then one day the ships came, not to trade, but to take. Darren lowered his head. "I'm sorry." She turned to him. "You are not them. You didn't take me. You waited." She placed her hand on her chest. "I used to dream of dying with a blade in my hand. Now, I dream of holding something soft, something small, something that carries both of us." Darren blinked. "You really want this?" She looked into his eyes. "I want this because it's mine to want." That night, they made the decision together. No ceremony, no pressure, no command, just truth, just hands meeting slowly, eyes not turning away, not fear, not shame, just a bond written in silence. Days passed and then weeks. Their child began to grow. Malaya changed, not in weakness, but in light. Her steps became slower, but her presence stronger. Darren started carving, a small figure out of wood scrap. A gift. Malaya tilted her head. "What is that?" "A human tradition," he said. "We carve toys before the baby arrives. It's small, silly, but it means something." She took it gently. "It means love. But peace never lasts forever." One afternoon, while scanning a distant comm relay, Darren caught something. A signal. Faint, scrambled, but real. The slaver syndicate had located an unauthorized exit path. Code translation. Suspected rogue asset. Kalari female. High value. Search begins. Sector, Varan. Darren showed her the message. "They're coming." Malaya didn't flinch. "Then we don't hide. We prepare." They activated the old relay station near the mountain's edge, once used by miners, now forgotten. Together, they rewired it into a beacon trap, not to escape, but to lure them in. Malaya stood at the cave's entrance that night, eyes glowing, gold under the starlight. Darren came behind her, she whispered. "They want my child." He replied, "Then let them come, but they'll learn. You're not alone anymore." She turned to him, and for the first time since he met her, she smiled, not guarded, not forced, but free. A new message was sent to Earth that night. Operation changed. Mission no longer observation. A rebellion begins with one free choice, and one unborn child who will carry the future. Far away in the halls of the slaver syndicate, the council prepared their weapons. Send the hunters, the master growled. Bring the female back, alive or broken. They didn't know. They weren't chasing a runaway. They were walking into the heart of fire, and this time it was not caged. The silence of Varan 5 was shattered by the deep growl of an engine. A black ship, shaped like a claw, entered the moon's thin atmosphere. No lights, no markings, only death inside. Malaya stood at the ridge above the cave, her hand resting gently on her belly. Her eyes were closed, but she wasn't praying. She was listening to the vibration of the ground, to the rhythm of wind, to the change in the air. Below, Darren was checking the power cells of their trap system. He looked up as she came down. "They're here," she said. He nodded. 2 minutes out. Malaya touched the side of the cliff wall. Ancient rock, etched with old Kalari symbols from a time before slavery. "This mountain remembers us," she whispered. Darren activated the trap beacon. A fake signal burst upward, a call for help. Pretending to be a broken slave collar beacon, the ship above turned sharply, hooked, just as planned. Inside the hunter vessel, 4 figures moved with quiet steps, clad in red armor, faces hidden by black masks. They spoke only in coded signals. They were trained to capture, not to ask, and they had been told one thing. The female must live. The human is expendable. Darren placed the final detonator charge beneath the cliff path. As he stood, Malaya appeared beside him. He looked at her, really looked at her. Her silver blue skin glowed softly. Her eyes were not afraid. "You don't have to fight," he said. "I'm not fighting," she replied. "I'm protecting." The first hunter stepped into the trap zone. A soft ping triggered under his boot. He froze. Then the ground lit up. Boom. Not enough to kill, but enough to break the entrance path in half. Darren aimed his pulse rifle, fired twice. One hunter dropped. The others scattered into cover. Malaya didn't run. She walked forward, graceful, steady, as if she were walking into a storm she had once tamed. One hunter leapt toward her from the side. Fast. Sharp blade raised. She caught his wrist mid-air, twisted. The blade dropped. She whispered in his ear, "You took from me once." Then threw him against the rock. Another tried to shoot Darren from above. Darren rolled, took cover, aimed, fired once through the shadow. Direct hit. Breathing heavy, Darren shouted, "We need to fall back." But Malaya was no longer listening. She had stepped through something ancient. An old gate carved into the mountain wall had cracked open behind her, drawn by her blood, drawn by her child. Inside was a small chamber, silent, empty, except for a single glowing stone, floating midair. She reached out and the stone melted into her palm, not hot, not cold, but powerful. Symbols formed on her skin, glowing gold. A voice echoed soft and old. "Royal line confirmed, bloodline rekindled, defense protocol available." The mountain rumbled. Outside, Darren fell to one knee. "Malaya, what's happening?" She stepped out of the stone chamber, her body now surrounded by a soft, shimmering field of light. "I remember now," she said. "What?" "My ancestors built this place not just to hide, but to fight, for the ones who had no choice." She lifted her hand. The cliff wall behind her shifted. Metal panels slid open, revealing ancient cannons. The remaining hunters turned to run. Too late, a silent blast of energy dropped all of them in seconds. Clean, precise, final. Smoke faded. Silence returned. Malaya stood still, breathing deep, her body glowing, her child safe. Darren walked toward her slowly. "You unlocked it." She looked at him, eyes shining. "I didn't." We did. You didn't just free me. You reminded me who I was before they caged me. That night they buried the hunters far from the mountain. No words, no ceremony, just the stars above, and the flame between them. Later, inside the cave, Darren sat beside Malia as she rested. He placed his hand on her stomach. Your people will come for you now, she nodded. And when they do, she whispered, we won't run anymore. We'll rise. Far away, the slaver syndicate received the hunter ship's last signal. Status: mission failed. Target: awakened, human, alive. A quiet voice growled, then send the next team. Send the best or she'll build an army from fire and blood. But it was already too late, because the first fire had been lit, and it was not a weapon. It was a mother. The stars above Varan 5 seemed brighter now, as if the sky itself was watching, waiting. Inside the cave, where cold stone once echoed with fear, warmth now lived. A small fire crackled, and beside it, Malia slept, one hand resting on her stomach. The child within her was growing, not fast, not slow, but steady. Darren sat across from her, working quietly with his tools. He had been carving again, but this time not a toy. A symbol, half of it shaped like Earth's star, the other half shaped like the Kailari flame sigil. He didn't know why, but it felt right. When Malia woke, she moved gently. Her body was different now, not weaker but wiser. He noticed how she carried herself with quiet power. You didn't sleep much, she said. I wanted to finish this. He held up the carving, she studied it, touched it, then whispered, this is what our child will be, not one world, not the other, but a bridge. Later that day they walked the edge of the high cliffs. Below them the ruins of the old Kailari temple still slept beneath moss and sand. Malia paused. We were not built to conquer, she said. We were made to carry memory. But memory turned into chains. She knelt and placed her hand on the old stone. A pulse of light ran across the carvings, symbols awakened. A voice spoke, faint, like dust being blown off a dream. Flame blood identified. One flame, one peace, one air. Darren stepped back. What is that? Malia stood slowly. It's an echo. These temples were not just for prayer. They were waiting for someone like her. She touched her stomach. Our daughter. That night a storm rolled across the sky, but inside the cave the fire burned steady. Malia leaned against Darren's shoulder. He whispered, Are you afraid? She smiled faintly. No, because this child is not born from fear. She is born from choice. Meanwhile, far across space, something moved. A small, silent Earthship picked up a long-range signal. It wasn't from any known human system, but the code was clear. Agent Holt alive. Operation changed. Subject Malia carrying hybrid. Energy signatures unknown. Possible. Kailari legacy reactivation. Back on Earth in the human command tower, alarms flashed. A general leaned forward and muttered, Get me a gate team. If what I'm reading is true, this child may change everything. Back on Varan 5, Malia was resting when it happened. She sat up quickly. Her skin glowed, not softly but bright. Darren rushed over. What is it? She didn't speak. She just turned toward the cave wall, and fire symbols began to appear across the stone. Not drawn, written by light. Malia's voice was calm, but filled with power. She's speaking. From inside. She knows things I don't. Darren froze. The baby? Malia nodded. She's not just a mix of you and me. She carries the voice of those who were lost, and the flame of those who were never born. Darren didn't know what to say, so he took her hand and whispered, Then let's raise her to finish what they never could. Elsewhere, the slaver syndicate wasn't sleeping. Inside a massive black fortress ship, Cloaked in shadow, the Slaver King stood before a group of cyber-enhanced hunters. We underestimated the human and the Kailari, but now, the child is growing. A hybrid heir means danger. Danger means war. He turned to the lead hunter. Go to Varen. I don't want the mother. I don't want the human. I want the child. Back. In the cave, Malaya touched her belly and whispered, They're coming. Darren nodded. Let them. He handed her the carved symbol, now polished, smooth and glowing slightly with her energy. She held it close. This will be her name. Not given by fire, not given by force, but by two hearts who chose each other. Outside, the stars were no longer silent, and in the shadows between them, something ancient stirred, not just a child, not just a rebellion, but the start of a legend. The sky above Varen 5 turned black, not with clouds, not with storm, but with ships, silent, sharp, countless. The Slaver Syndicate had arrived. Inside the mountain cave, Darren checked the scanner. 1 dot, then 10, then too many to count. They're coming for her, he said. Malaya, standing in the center of the stone chamber, didn't flinch. They're not ready for what she carries. Her hand rested over her stomach. It was glowing again. Soft, steady, alive. The old Kelari tech inside the mountain began to hum. Walls shifted. Symbols burned like fire across the stone. Weapons unfolded from the stone itself. Not machines, but living defense. A voice filled the air. Legacy recognized. Defense protocol fireborn. Darren turned to Malaya. You sure you're ready? She looked at him. Fierce, calm, queen-like. I am not alone. She stands with me. Outside, the slavers landed. Black-armored hunters spread across the cliffs. Their mission, take the child. Nothing else mattered. The first wave attacked fast, dropped soldiers with plasma rifles, jet boots, and capture rods. They moved with precision. But the mountain was awake now. Old pillars lit up and fired pure light. The ground opened, swallowing the first 6 hunters whole. Screams echoed, then silence. Inside the cave, Malaya stood on the altar. She raised both hands. From her body, a golden flame lifted upward. Not heat, not weapon. Signal. The message pulsed across the stars. I am Malaya of the Flameblood. My child will not be caged. Come if you wish to fall. Darren took position at the cave entrance. He fired. Reloaded. Fired again. Not like a soldier. Like a father, protecting what mattered most. Malaya stepped out beside him. She raised her palm. A line of flame carved itself into the sky. It struck 3 ships in one breath. They spun, crashed, burned. Still, the slavers came. A massive hunter. Dropped from above on twice her size, skin-plated eyes glowing red. You are nothing but a breeder, he hissed. Malaya tilted her head. I am the storm that taught fire to speak. She moved. Fast. 1 strike to the chest. Energy burst. The hunter fell. Didn't rise. Darren limped. His arm cut. Shoulder bruised. But he reached Malaya again. They won't stop. She nodded. Then we give them something to remember. She walked to the ancient altar. Planted both hands on the glowing surface. Symbols flew across her arms, her face. The entire mountain shook. Final protocol. Awaken Flameborn. A bright wave of light exploded across the land. Slavers stopped in their tracks. Ships froze in mid-air. Weapons powered down. Every scanner failed. Then, silence. From the heart of the mountain, a soft cry echoed. A child's cry. Malaya dropped to her knees. It's time. Darren caught her in his arms. He didn't care about the war outside. He didn't care about the pain in his body. He only saw her and her child. Their child. Born not from violence, not from command, but from choice, from love. Hours later, the slavers were gone. Vanished. Not killed. Changed. The mountain didn't destroy them. It showed them something. Each hunter had seen a vision of a child holding both earth and flame in her hands, smiling, not destroying, but healing. They dropped their weapons, left their ships, and walked away. Darren sat outside the cave, in his arms. The child, small, warm, glowing. Her eyes opened, golden, like her mother's. He whispered, "Welcome to a world we almost lost. You brought it back." Malaya stepped out, tired, strong, radiant. She sat beside him, leaned her head on his shoulder. "She will have a name?" she asked. He smiled. "You tell me." Malaya looked up at the stars. "Her name is Elira. It means light between worlds." Far away in Earth's command center, the final message came through. "Target not captured, but she is not dangerous, she is hope." The council paused, then deleted the file. Some truths were too sacred to control. In hidden places across stars, other Kalari heard the flame call and answered it. The Fireborn. Legacy had begun, and it would not end with war, it would end with peace. Years passed, but the story didn't fade. It grew. On the planet Varan 5, where fire once fell from the sky and mountains shook with the voice of a child not yet born, peace now lived. Flowers grew where slaver boots once stepped. Laughter echoed where silence used to scream. And in the heart of that quiet world, a little girl ran through tall grass, her golden eyes glowing like starlight. Her name was Elira, daughter of a Kalari Fireborn, daughter of a human who never raised his hand in power, but instead offered it open. In the shade of a silver tree, Darren Holt sat carving again. Not for war, not for hiding, but for her. Today's carving was of a bird, free, wings open, eyes sharp. Elira ran up to him, laughing. "Papa, look, I made the flame move." She held her hand out, and a soft light danced across her fingers, not fire that burned, but fire that shimmered like water. He smiled. "You did that all by yourself?" Malaya stepped up behind her, arms crossed playfully. She nearly lit the food again. Darren laughed. "She's her mother's child." They sat under the tree together, the three of them. A family never written in the stars, but forged in them. Elsewhere, across the galaxy, word spread, not of war, not of blood, but of a man, a human, who was sent to buy a slave and chose to be something else. Pilgrims came to Varan 5, Kalari and human, alien and stranger, scholars, survivors, even former hunters, now silent, ashamed, changed. They came not to take, but to listen. Darren never stood above anyone. He didn't wear robes, didn't claim to be wise. When asked why he stayed, he answered, "Only this. I was sent to make a deal, but I found something more valuable than power. I found a voice worth following, and a child who carries both of us in her smile." Elira grew strong, not with fists, but with kindness. She spoke many languages, learned many stories, but always asked the same question first. "Do you know what it means to choose someone and not own them?" One day, a young Kailari student asked Darren, "You were given the chance to be her master. Why did you say no?" He looked down at the carved flame pendant he always wore and said gently, "Because no one should hold another person's light in their fist, only in their heart." That answer was passed from mouth to mouth, ship to ship, planet to planet. They called him the man who refused to own. Malaya stood by his side through every season. She led the Flameborn, not as queen, not as warrior, but as mother of a new future. Together they built a school, not to train soldiers, but to teach choice. The final message sent from Varan 5 to Earth read, "The hybrid lives. The slaver network is gone, and a world once feared now teaches peace. We do not request extraction. We invite you to learn. Come not as masters, but as guests." Back on Earth, the High Council read the message and chose silence. Because, sometimes, the quietest voice holds the greatest power. In the final years of Darren's life, he sat with Alira under the old silver tree. She was nearly grown now, strong, curious, brave. She asked, "Will the stars remember us?" Darren smiled. "They don't need to. Because you will." And when he finally closed his eyes for the last time, Mylaya lit a single flame, and Alira whispered, "You were never my master. You were always my father." That night, the stars above Varan 5 blinked softly, as if they too remembered the man who came to own and instead chose to love.